was a wedding, a great wedding. Princes and kings and queens and princesses from all kingdoms. And after the celebrations, the giant brought the prince, and there stood his 3 daughters. And they were all dressed alike, and they were all veiled. The prince looked, and he could not tell between the 3 daughters until he looked at their hands, and the little finger on the hand of his bride was missing, and he chose her. The giant was furious, but he said, "Now you must go to your rest." Now in the bedchamber, the giant's daughter turned to the prince and said, "We shall not rest, for if we rest we shall die. My father will surely kill us." And then what she did, she cut an apple into 9 pieces, and she put 2 pieces at the head of the bed, 2 pieces at the bottom of the bed. She put 2 pieces at the kitchen door, and she put 2 pieces at the main door of the castle, and then she put 1 piece outside the castle gates. And she said, "Now we must flee." And they took the blue-grey filly from the stables, and they rode like the wind away from the castle. Now in the morning, the giant went to the door of the bedchamber, and he said, "Are you yet awake?" And the 2 portions of apple from the head of the bed said, "No, we are not yet awake." The giant again said, "Are you yet awake?" And the 2 pieces from the foot of the bed said, "No, we are not yet awake." The giant was growing curious, and he said, "Are you yet awake?" And the 2 pieces in the kitchen said, "No, we are not yet awake." And the giant was growing very curious because the sound was coming from further away. And he said, "Are you yet awake?" And the 2 pieces from the main gate of the castle said, "No, we are not yet awake." But then the giant threw open the gates, and he saw the final piece of apple outside. And he knew he had been tricked, and he flew into a fury, and he chased off after the prince and his daughter. The giant's daughter said, "I can feel my father's breath on my back. Quickly, place your hand into the ear of the blue-grey filly and throw behind you whatever you find there." And the prince did that, and he pulled out a twig of a sloe berry bush, and he threw it behind him, and a great blackthorn wood 20 miles wide and 20 miles deep grew up. And the giant was travelling at such a pace he ran straight into the blackthorn wood, and his skin on his face and his hands was torn to pieces. And he said, "If I had my great axe, I would make short work of this blackthorn wood." And he went back to his castle, and he got his axe, and he chopped his way through the wood. And he went to leave his axe to follow on after the prince and his daughter, when a great hooded crow said, "If you leave your axe there, I will steal it." So the giant had to go all the way back to his castle and put his axe back in his castle, and then he ran and ran and ran. And soon, it was midday by this time, the giant's daughter said, "I can feel my father's breath burning on my back. Place your hand into the ear of the blue-grey filly and throw behind you whatever you find there." And the prince did that, and he pulled out and he threw it behind him. And a great mountain range, 20 miles high and 20 miles deep, grew up. And the giant slammed into the mountain, and he said, if I had my great hammer, I could make short work of these mountains. And he went back to his castle and got his hammer, and he smashed his way through that mountain range. And when he came to the other side, a great hooded crow said, if you leave your hammer there, I will steal it. And the giant said, steal it if you will. And he carried on. And soon, as evening came, the giant's daughter said, I can feel my father's breath burning on my back. Quick, place your hand in the ear of the blue-grey filly and throw behind you what you find there. Now, the prince did that, and he found a skin of water, and he threw it behind him. And a great loch, 20 miles long, 20 miles wide, and 20 miles deep, appeared. And the giant was running so fast that he could not stop, and he ran into the centre of the loch, and he was drowned. The prince and the giant's daughter arrived in his father's kingdom. And the giant's daughter said, my father is dead, and he will trouble us no more. And he said, go to your family, but do not allow anyone to kiss you. Tell them that we are married, but do not allow your mother or your father or anyone else to kiss you. And the prince did that. He arrived at his father's castle, and he was greeted by his mother and his father, and he said, stop. And he explained that they could not kiss him. But his best greyhound, who had missed him terribly, came bounding up and leapt up and kissed his face. And in that instant, he forgot all about the giant's daughter. And she waited and waited and waited by the well that where he had left her. And soon night fell, and she climbed into a tree for safety. And she spent the night there, and still the prince did not return. Now, near to that well lived a poor shoemaker, and in the morning he awoke thirsty, and he said to his wife, go to the well and fetch me a drink of water. And his wife went to the well. The sun was shining, and she saw the shadow of the giant's daughter by the well, and she mistook it for her own shadow. And she had never realised how beautiful and fair and elegant she was. So she stormed back to the house, and she said to the shoemaker, I am not your servant. And she threw the pail down, empty of water. The shoemaker was very taken aback by this. He didn't know what to say. So he turned to his daughter and he said, daughter, go to the well and fetch me some water, for I'm thirsty. So his daughter went, and again she saw the shadow of the giant's daughter, and she mistook it for her own shadow. And she saw how fair she was and how elegant. And she stormed back to the house, and she threw down the pail and said, I am not your servant. Now the shoemaker had no choice but to go to the well himself. And he saw the shadow too, but he saw that it was the shadow of a fair maiden. So he looked up into the tree, and he saw the giant's daughter, and he held her down, and he brought her back to his house, and he fed her, and he gave her drink. Now, Many of the young men of the town arrived that day at the shoemaker's shop, for they wanted new shoes because there was to be a royal wedding. But when they saw the giant's daughter, they saw how fair she was. And each of the three men said, "I wish to marry this maiden if she will have me. And I will pay 100 gold coins if she will have me." The giant's daughter agreed, and the first of the young men came. And as night fell, the giant's daughter went to bed, and she said to the first young man, she said, "Go and fetch me a drink from that goblet on the table." And the young man went, but as soon as he touched the goblet, he was stuck fast to the spot and could not move for the whole night. And in the morning, when the spell ended and he was released, he ran from that place. And that evening, the next young man came. And again, the giant's daughter said, could you go and bolt the door?" And the young man agreed, and he went and he bolted the door, but his hand stuck fast to the bolt, and he couldn't move. And in the morning, when the spell ended, he ran from that place. And the same thing for the third young man, whose feet were stuck fast to the floor all night, and he ran from that place. The day of the wedding came, the royal wedding, and the shoemaker had to deliver the shoes to the castle. And the giant's daughter said, "Can I come with you, because I want to see the prince?" And the shoemaker said, "Yes, I know many of the servants in the castle. Come with me. You will see the prince." And when they arrived at the castle, the servants took the giant's daughter to the wedding room, and they gave her a glass of wine to drink. When she went to drink the wine, a great flame came from the glass, and out of that flame came one silver dove and one golden dove, and 3 grains of barley. And the silver dove started to peck at the barley, and the golden dove said, "Why, I cleaned the byre for you. Surely I deserve my share of this barley." And 3 more grains of barley appeared, and the silver dove began to peck at the barley. And the golden dove said, "Why, I thatched the roof of the byre for you. Surely I deserve my share of this barley." And 3 more grains of barley appeared, and the silver dove began to peck at the barley. And the golden dove said, "I made a ladder for you to get to the magpie's eggs. Surely I deserve my share of this barley." And it was in that moment that the prince emerged from his enchantment, and he remembered, and he kissed the giant's daughter, and they were married that day, and that is where I left them.